Well, I've got some kind of damage in my right ear from going to concerts.
Yeah.
And you've probably got a fair bit of some kind of damage from
I know
going to
what side.
concerts.
I know what side of the drums I stand on, or used to stand on.
Yeah, drums are not good for your ears.
That's the cymbals. The cymbals of
Yeah.
the kit is just terrible for you.
Yeah. I was talking to someone from Saturday night at Kirrawee, Jamie, and he plays drums, and he's got tinnitus from playing drums so much. So that's fun. Welcome back, everyone, to the Chip Lunch podcast. It is fantastic to have you along with us. We're back here in the studio, and Braden joining us.
Lovely to be back.
Lovely to be back. You haven't been on for a while.
Haven't I? I don't remember.
Is this the first time you've been on since you removed the sling? Or have
That's
you
a
been
good
on?
question. Probably.
I think it is.
I think so. Yeah, I'm back at it.
Wow.
2 arms.
Two operable arms, is that right? Or that, is that
Operable?
you mean you can I can operate?
Operatable? I don't
Functional?
know. Yeah, let's go with functional.
Well, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome our guest today, and it is Pam. Welcome, Pam. Thank you very much for coming on. How are you
Thank you.
today?
Not bad, not bad.
Excellent. You are what we call a stalwart of MCC, would you say?
Does that make me sound as if I'm out of the ark?
I don't know. Only if you wish to say that you are from the
No,
ark.
I definitely wasn't in the ark.
No.
But I did join Miranda Cong in 1964.
Wow. So yes, you have been here for a long time.
So I've been around a while.
I have a question though. If you were on the ark, which would be your favourite animals?
The giraffe,
Giraffes.
Yeah, that's a good pick.
as long as they didn't get a sore throat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a lot of sore throat.
You're stuck on a boat with a sore throat giraffe. Can't be pleasant.
No, sounds like a kid's storybook or something.
It does. Well, it is.
Copyright that.
Copyright that. It's wonderful to have you along with us. Thank you for making the time. You said you were like a little bit under the weather, but that's fine. But yeah, we're really excited to have you on it. You did say you wanted to meet me first. I remember you said you want to see who you are before you come on a podcast and talk about your life.
Did he live up to expectations?
Yes, yes.
Well, I was comfortable when we sat down and chatted, and I thought I wanted to know who you were before I agreed to do it.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I appreciate you doing your due diligence. Very much appreciated. Should we start with the first question, which is, Pam, how do you like to have your hot chips?
I love hot chips.
Yes.
Excellent.
Right.
I'm very fussy about my hot chips. They can't be thin and soggy
Yeah.
Agreed.
like some of the big, but we shouldn't go down there.
Don't need to mention
I like hot chips to be medium size, not big and chunky either. They've just got to be just right. The best in the show
that. Ooh.
Yes, tell us.
is actually the cafe
Yeah.
in Yowie Bay,
Ooh.
Okay.
Okay.
and they will do you takeaway hot chips for $8.
Yeah.
And they are perfect. They're the right size. You can go for sea salt or,
Chicken salt?
yes, but we won't talk about chicken salt.
Yes. I don't like chicken salt either. Just to be clear on that.
It's not hot chips with chicken salt.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's 100% correct.
I find that so interesting because it's like the one thing you can put chicken salt on. You don't put chicken salt on anything else, do you?
Yeah, that's the point though, is that salt can go on many things, including hot chips.
Yeah.
Chicken salt can only go on chips.
Well, that makes it more of a delicacy, I guess.
No.
No. Yeah, Pam and I are in agreement. You're wrong.
You may leave the room.
Oh, okay. Well, early mark.
Right, and so the second question I always like to ask sometimes about hot chips is, people often have memories associated with hot chips. Do you have any childhood memories or a memory that you can associate with having hot chips?
Well, when I was a child, there wasn't much in the way of takeaway.
Yep.
So hot chips was about it, and they came wrapped in newspaper.
Yeah.
And you'd get a sort of a bundle and you'd tear off the top and eat them out of the bundle.
Yeah.
Yep. That's pretty cool.
And they definitely tasted better.
Yeah.
Oh, with a bit of newsprint on them. Mm. Excellent.
And chicken salt hadn't even been invented then.
Yeah, that's right. See, salt is the classic, isn't it? It's the right thing to put on your chips. Yeah, exactly. I remember actually. You remember just before when you said that we caught up before you came on the podcast, that you said that you have listened to a few different chip lunches, but the one that you switched off was when we started talking about going to toilets. Is that right?
Did we have to bring that up?
Well,
it was my right to switch it off, and I did.
Very, very true. Yes, I appreciate that. I'd prefer other people would do that rather than complain. But I think we were talking about Lewis going over to his house.
It was somebody's high school.
Yeah. From school. So because he lived directly across from the high school, and he said that people would, instead of using the toilets at school, would use his toilet at his house, and that was the point you switched it off. Right. Well, it's nice of you to change your mind and come on. Hopefully, we don't have too many people switching off your podcast. All right. Second question. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
I'm so ready. As a stalwart of Miranda Congregational Church, how did you become a Christian?
I became a Christian on the 14th of April 1954.
Wow. Okay.
It wasn't any big theological sermon or anything. It was something that really appealed to my silly sense of humour.
Yeah.
The speaker said, going to church didn't make you a Christian any more than going into a garage made you a car.
Yeah.
And having grown up in a lovely Christian home.
Yeah.
My parents were both Christians. Dad was very involved. He was a local preacher, district steward and all those things in the Methodist Church back in the 40s and 50s.
Yep.
So I was used to going to church, Sunday school. He was superintendent for 25 years, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was when the fellow said that, I thought, well, strike. I've got to make a personal decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thus it was an Easter Sunday evening.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
How old were you when?
In 1954, I would have been 14.
Okay.
I was born in 1940.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that's pretty cool.
So kind of that perfect age where you do start kind of making some of your own decisions in terms of becoming a teenager and thinking about things a little bit more than just what mum and dad are doing.
Yeah.
Was it a case of like knowing all the supposedly Christian answers, but then you decided to take it on for yourself?
Well, I guess so. You sort of grew up. In fact, the scriptures I know off by heart now are ones that I learnt in the early days. In those days, we used to have Sunday school exams.
Oh, really?
Wow.
And you used to learn passages of scripture,
Yeah.
you know, and they still come back to mind, like the heavens declare the glory of God, the firmament showeth his handiwork. You know, it's just all up there and it comes out sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's helpful to be able to fall back on that at any time, isn't it? So that's
But,
really cool.
I mean, these days the translation is different. We use, that would have been King James.
Oh, right, okay. And so where did this happen? Where were you in Australia when you became a Christian?
I grew up in Blacktown.
Yeah.
Right.
And Blacktown in the 40s and 50s was a really nice country town.
Yeah, pretty rural, right?
People knew each other.
Yeah.
As I said, my dad was very involved. At one stage he was Shire president. He had a big construction company. he prided himself in the fact that his girls always did his office work. So I worked for him for 2 years when my older sister went to Melbourne Bible College.
Okay.
She normally did his office work, but when she wanted to go away for 2 years, I gave up my job and went home, and that was the period when he did the first 2 ever Westfields.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Where were the first 2 ones?
The very first one was in Blacktown, but not where it is now. Okay. The first one was sort of behind the post office, a much smaller area, and the second one was actually in Hornsby, and that was the very first one in Hornsby, and they've since added to it and possibly even added to it.
Okay, right.
Okay.
Does that mean your dad was friendly with Frank Lowy?
Yes, Lowy and Saunders had a delicatessen shop in Blacktown.
Okay.
Yep.
And,
Oh, that's cool.
And it was a unique situation. It never worked like that now, because it was all done on due and charge.
Was it?
So there was great trust on both sides.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, that's really interesting.
But
For such a big project.
Every nail, stick of wood and whatever had to be, noted.
Accounted for.
Otherwise, father lost money and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And I bet you that was a big part of your job. Is that right? Keeping track of it all? Yeah, I can understand that. Can I rewind a little bit, though? Tell me what it was like growing up in Blacktown in the 1940s and 50s.
Well, as I say, it was a nice, friendly place. I don't remember a lot about my early childhood. I do remember the day the war ended.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Because I was still at home with Mum, and I remember all the kids come home from school because the war had ended.
Oh, wow.
V-Day, isn't it? Yep.
And I remember them all walking up. We lived up a hill.
Yeah.
And, we were out the front to greet them. And everybody was happy. And I remember that day quite clearly, although I don't remember a lot of other things about early childhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Except falling off a bike and breaking my arm when I was 5.
Oh, really? When you were 5? Goodness.
The highs and the lows, you
Yeah.
remember? What did family look like for you? Like, so you've obviously mentioned your dad, your mum. Like, did you have siblings?
Yeah, Mum and Dad, and I have an older sister, 4 years older, although she'd tell you it's only 3 years and 11 months. And she's still with us, so she's and she's still got a husband. Yep. They live on the Sunshine Coast.
Okay.
Oh, lovely.
That's nice. Do you get up there very often?
Not these days.
Yeah.
Joanne took me up last November to see her.
Oh, okay.
Which was great.
Yeah, very cool. And so you became a Christian when you were 14. So what do you think changed from that point when you became a Christian? Was it anything different? Did you make different decisions?
Don't think so. Not, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'd rather you be honest.
Life sort of went on as usual.
And you said you're just going to church on Sundays for Sunday school. When do you kind of decide to make the move out of Blacktown? You were obviously still working for your dad eventually.
Yeah, well, actually, Father retired very early.
Oh.
I worked it out not so long ago that he would have only been 51, 52 when he retired. I remember him saying that he felt that the building trade was going to go downhill and he could work another 10 years and end up with less money than he had.
Right.
Okay.
So he decided to retire. And he had previously built a house in South Cronulla, which he had built to retire into, but we'd basically used it as a holiday house. Like he didn't carpet it or anything.
Yeah.
Although it had all the niceties in it.
Yeah.
So he decided to retire. I was still at home. I'd had a broken engagement actually, so I was, still at home.
Yeah.
And so I moved with them down to South Cronulla.
Yeah.
I was involved in Boys Brigade.
What's that?
Boys Brigade? You don't know what Boys Brigade?
No.
Shock horror. It was very popular back then. I worked in what they called Life Boys, which was the younger side of Boys Brigade. At that stage, I was going to Blacktown Baptist. I grew up in the Methodist Church. Used to play a lot of competition table tennis. We were very proud of the fact that we did quite well each year.
Yeah.
Because back in those days, the churches, Protestant churches, had table tennis competitions.
Right.
Yeah,
They had a sports day.
Yeah.
Where one year us Baptists decided we were going to give the Anglicans a run for their money. And we'd go of a night and train. And I actually came second in a 220 once.
Oh.
I was very proud of that certificate.
Very good. Yeah,
Sorry.
Because you earned it. That's why.
A lot of work went into those 220s.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
And so Boys Brigade.
Boys Brigade, sorry. Yeah, well, it was something that the older boys, there was a captain in charge, and the captain of Blacktown Boys Brigade was actually one of my father's foremen.
Okay.
So I was looking back on it, and I think that's probably how I got involved in Boys Brigade, as women were only leaders of the Life Boys.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
They call it something different now, not Life Boys, but I don't remember what.
And so what's the purpose of Boys Brigade and Life Boys?
It was sort of activities for boys that had a Christian, like I guess we had devotions.
Yeah.
And when Dad retired to South Cronulla, it so happened that the captain of Blacktown knew the captain of Caringbah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a case of I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, you were straight. They just slid straight over. You didn't
It was a case of, and actually my best friend who I had coffee with just this week, that's when I met her because she worked in Boys Brigade, Life Boys, Caringbah Baptist.
Ah, okay.
So when I started to go there, I met Val and we became good friends and, sort of, 60 years later or something?
That's lovely. That's really cool. You're still friends. Just before we get to kind of your move to the Shire, you said that you had a broken engagement. What's the story there? If you want to, do you want to share that with us?
Not particularly.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I was hurt very badly.
Okay.
But I will say, for my 21st birthday, it was before that, God gave me Psalm 37.
Okay.
Are you aware of Psalm 37?
I'm not off the top of my head, so I'd love you to share that.
It's delight in the Lord and don't worry about those that do wrong. Don't want to bad mouth anybody, but
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
But God gave you that too.
Yes.
Not a very good situation. God gave you that psalm to rely on Him.
it's delight in the Lord
Yeah.
and He will give you the desires of your heart. It's worth a read,
Yeah.
those first few verses.
Yeah.
And I felt God gave me that for my 21st.
Yeah.
And so I started afresh at South Cronulla
Yeah.
when Father moved to South Cronulla.
Yeah.
How old were you when you moved to Cronulla?
Well, I would have been 21,
Yeah.
Yeah.
22. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have dates
Yeah.
when we
totally.
actually
Oh,
moved
totally,
there.
yeah.
I don't remember packing,
Yeah.
but I don't think I did. I think I just I worked in town,
Yeah.
and I think I went into town one day and after work I caught the train to Cronulla.
Caught a different train home.
That was it. Yeah.
You know,
Can we briefly jump back a little bit before we jump forward? What did school look like for you? Like, do you have fond memories of school?
No.
No? You didn't enjoy it?
I hated school.
Really?
Yeah. Why? What did you not enjoy about school?
I don't know. I've tried to analyse it.
Yeah.
I started school before I spoke properly.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And I had an experience where at lunchtime we had to sit in a tin shed to eat our lunches. And the teacher wouldn't let me go to the so-called toilet. And it wasn't a pleasant scene.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that really I hate school for this reason. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. But I was late talking properly.
Yeah.
And as my late husband would tell you, she's made up for it ever since.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Mother was never worried about me because she said I always put it over the older kids when it came to playing Snap and games like that.
Yeah.
So she said there's nothing wrong with you. You were
You
just
didn't like
probably lazy.
Well, then, yeah, it happens at different times with different children, doesn't it?
And I'm not an academic.
Yeah.
I liked maths. I even liked algebra.
Yeah.
But I think that's why I always worked in finance,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
because 2 and 2 were always 4.
Yeah.
You didn't have to worry about whether it was weather, you know, type of thing, if you get my meaning.
Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
clear rules in maths.
Mm.
You can't change
Less
things.
grey area.
Yeah, less nuance.
Yeah. Yeah.
My sister was bright.
Okay.
Someone had to get the brains, and I'll get into trouble for saying
Did
that.
you get the brawn? But you also said then, so if you didn't enjoy school, what year did you finish school then? I mean, because did you go all the way to year 12?
They didn't have year 12
Yeah,
then.
that's what I was going to say.
The intermediate was equivalent to year 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was first year, second year, third year.
Yeah.
That was high school. And in those days, this is something of interest too. In those days, we had a choice of high school. We either went to Penrith or Parramatta.
Yeah.
Right.
There was nothing in Blacktown, Seven Hills, Toongabbie, Wentworthville, Westmead, and all the schools. They've
Yeah.
probably got 3 and 4 in each of those suburbs now.
Yeah, right.
But back in, I would have gone to school, high school, in 52, 53, 54.
Yeah.
I would have been 12 in 52, and I was 12 when I went to high school,
Yeah.
12, 13, 14, and I left school when I was 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you around that time. So that's the end of World War II, as you said. You remember V-Day.
Well, yeah, 45.
Did you have a sense of the country changing a lot through the 50s to the 60s? Because that is, I mean, kind of the story of the Western world is like after World War II, you had the really difficult times to a degree in the 50s, and then the 60s was this massively changing time.
Yes, a lot of, I think probably Italians were the new Australians. We just called them new Australians. Yeah, the world changed. I don't know when pizzas started to come to Sydney.
Yeah. Different takeaway. More takeaway options.
I
than
didn't
hot chips.
eat pasta until probably I was in my 20s.
Yeah.
A different world.
Yeah.
And even coming to the 60s, like the hippie movement and stuff, did you have an experience of that, those kind of things?
You knew it was there.
Yeah.
And their vehicles, etc., etc.
Yeah.
What were they? Combis.
Combis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Senior Pastor still drives one. So, does he drive it anymore? I don't know if he drives it.
It's around.
It's still.
Rob Turner's got one.
Oh, has he? Oh, I didn't know that. They could go on combi drives together. Okay, so you're finishing school at 15, like you said, and then I think you said you were working in town. Would that mean in the city?
Yeah.
So when did you start working for your dad, and when did you start working in the city?
It was funny. It's a case of what I wanted to do when I left school.
Yeah.
Was the only time I ever had an argument with my father.
Yeah.
And I didn't win. I wanted to work in the business, in the workshop.
Yeah.
He was perfectly happy for me to do that in the carpentry side.
Yeah.
But I said if I was going to do it, I wanted to go to tech and qualify as a chippy.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was a case of no daughter of mine is going to be the only girl in a class of 30 guys.
Yeah.
And I said, well, if I can't do that, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what I wanted to do. So they put me into business college.
Okay.
And I loved bookkeeping. I learnt to type, but I really shone at bookkeeping. And that's followed me right through my life, doing finances.
And you did say before that you like doing finances of some kind. But what's the appeal of that to you? Why do you enjoy that so much?
It's satisfying, balancing books. It's also frustrating.
Yeah.
I remember my first job was in Macquarie Place in Sydney.
Yeah.
I worked for an accountant for 3 months, but he turned out to be a bit of a crook.
Yeah.
And we actually called him in the end Deadbeats Incorporated.
Yeah.
And so I had to leave there. And at that time, a job became available with a Christian estate agent in Parramatta,
Closer
which
to home.
was, of course, halfway. And so I took that up and worked for Ron Trow, who was a lovely Christian guy. And I worked for him until my sister was leaving for Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I had to
Got seconded.
go home and work.
And with accounting, did you have like those massive ledger books? And don't you have to write every single transaction?
Well, cash books and ledgers and all that. Yeah.
Well, like I've worked in some accounting areas, and I've never had to do that because of computers. So I'm fascinated in the fact that you have to write every single thing down. You obviously would have all the receipts. You'd have to write everything down in the accounts. I've got one question for you, one boring accounting question. How do you put it all together in terms of the accounts to show like a profit and loss or a balance sheet?
Balance sheet?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the way it all works out, isn't it?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking you. I'm checking with you. How did you end up doing that without computers? That's what I'm unsure about.
Well, you used your brains.
Are you calling me dumb?
Yes.
Well, when computers first started,
Yeah.
I thought if I ignored them, they'd go away. But they didn't.
No.
So I ended up going back to TAFE and did 3 computer studies, 1, 2 and 3 over 3 years.
Yeah.
So I learned to write a DOS program and things like that. So.
Wow. So when was that though? Well, we're jumping forward a fair bit of time in time.
That.
Are we talking 80s?
I was finished by 88.
Okay.
So, because,
I'd
gone to, we're jumping around a bit. But
computers didn't last much longer after the 80s anyway, I don't think. They haven't gone anywhere.
What are you talking about? He's calling me old. That's what he's trying to do.
No.
Okay, so now we'll rewind again back to Cronulla. Fresh start, as you called it. What you started doing Life Boys. Anything else that was a part of the fresh start?
Yes, my sister had married and they were living at Beverly Hills. They had a group that played squash of a Wednesday night because her husband was studying to do his LTH.
What's that?
Oh, it's a theological studies. Some of the ministers have got an LTH and some of them haven't. I don't know what it stands for, to be honest.
TH is probably theology. I don't know what L would be. Would you know what L would be, Braden?
No idea.
Anyway, I was invited to go and join them of a Wednesday night, and Father had always let me drive a ute or something. I'd never been allowed to drive the family car up until he retired. Okay. But then we came to an arrangement. He didn't want me to buy a car at that stage. Yeah. So when I used the car, I paid. I insisted upon paying per mile.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would drive myself up to...
Yeah. What was the family car?
It was a Holden at that stage.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think if it was an EH or...
I don't know anything about cars, so...
Oh, you
what
don't?
colour was it?
It was green.
Okay, well, there's my mental picture painted.
That's a classic colour for the old Holden, isn't it, that green? Was it that kind of light green? Or was it the dark one?
You're pushing the friendship now.
I'm glad we're friends.
It was green.
Okay, it was
anyway,
green.
I was invited to go up and join them for squash. I was not a great squash player.
I'm sure you would have been all right given the table tennis experience.
Well, it's a bit different.
Okay.
But anyway, it's a funny story, and I think I was manipulated a little bit.
Oh dear.
Because it happened afterwards when they were having supper. I found myself playing table tennis against this guy called Les Boggers.
Oh. Yeah.
And about halfway through the game, and it occurred to me, do I throw this game?
Yeah.
And I thought, this is all going through here. Mm-hmm. No, if you can't be beaten by a female, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I won.
So you thrashed him? Just thrashed him? Or was it a close game?
It wasn't a close game.
Destroyed him.
Anyway, down the track a bit, I got a phone call one time at work, you know. Did I want to go out? No, what he said was, do you want to come out with us on Saturday night? And he was very much involved in his youth group.
Okay.
And I thought I was going out with the group.
Yeah, okay.
You know. In fact, I think after a bit of conversation, I said sort of exactly who is us. And, of course, it was him.
Just him.
And my sister involved me in making, I did a lot of jumpers, knitting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he bought the wool and the pattern and I knitted the jumper.
Yeah.
I remember him bringing it into the office in town, and it had white edges on it, and I suggested that would get very dirty. Yeah. And he said, well, I like it. So I said, rightio, I can knit it.
Wow. And that's where it began.
That's where it all began.
Yeah. What was the date like when you were going out with us?
Oh, that was a very funny story.
Yeah.
He was feeling a little unwell that day. But anyway...
lovesick.
I don't think so. Just upset stomach probably. But anyway, driving home at Cronulla, there's double lines through in front of the station.
Yep.
And there was someone double parked, so he overtook them.
Yeah.
Next thing, we're pulled up by a policeman who said, are you aware of the fact that you just went over a double line? And he said no. And it turned out that he wasn't familiar with the area. But in the meantime, some hoons had come through. And so the policeman was more interested in them.
Yeah.
And... anyway, he stuck his head right in the car and looked at me and said, well, mate, concentrate on your driving. And off he went. So he didn't get fined, but he got told off.
Yeah.
And we often laughed about those double lines.
Yeah.
Was that the days where Cronulla Mall was a road all the way through? Yeah, did you know that?
No.
Yeah, someone else told me who grew up around similar time in Cronulla, told me that it wasn't a car-free zone. It was.
Oh no,
cars could go
that's
through.
not so long ago, is it?
Well, it is for me.
I couldn't tell you when.
Yeah.
We actually married in 1964, and I think it was still a road through then.
Yeah.
This person told me that they lit a bin on fire and then did donuts around it in that area. I thought it was quite funny. Probably the hoons that you were talking about.
Crossover.
Okay, so this is where you met your husband, Les, as you said. How does the relationship blossom from there? You're driving around just crossing double lines all the time, or for fun, or
No.
how long until the engagement and marriage and those kind of things?
Well, he made the comment one time that he was just about to give up on the iceberg when it started to melt. I was a bit off, guys.
Because of previous experience? Yep.
And but he was a fantastic Christian guy. Before he asked me to marry him, he said to me that he believed that he was in the position God wanted him to be, and he wouldn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
But he was in the place God wanted him to be. He actually managed a business called Christian Press.
Okay.
Which in those days was a wholesale business. It's not in existence anymore because the likes of Coorong import their own stuff. But in those days, Christian Press would import Christian literature, etc., and sell to the booksellers.
So the bookstores buy off them. Yep.
So a couple of times a year, Boggo would go interstate and Melbourne for a week, and then when he went to Adelaide it was a week, but then he'd follow it by a week in Perth, so he'd be gone 2 weeks that time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And were you guys going to different churches or the same church?
When we met,
Yeah.
well, I was going to Caringbah Baptist and he was going to Methodist at Bardwell Park Methodist.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's a long... It's interesting, like that's quite a fair way away that you ended up meeting together over the first time was at Squash. And then, so when you get married, did he move to the Shire?
We bought a house.
Okay.
We started to look for a house very early, like November before we were getting married in March. But straight away we found something. And it all happened. Dad used to play bowls with a semi-retired estate agent, and he just made the casual comment, the kids are looking for a house. If you see anything worth looking at, let's know. Yeah. And he said, well, as a matter of fact, there's a really good buy at the moment on at Yowie Bay, but we hadn't even heard of Yowie Bay.
Even living in Cronulla, you didn't know?
Yeah.
Really, right.
Well, we moved to South Cronulla. I was working in town. There was no reason to...
Yeah, no train station at
Yowie Bay.
I'm understanding. It still isn't.
And keep in mind, Dad was pretty young.
Yeah.
And he used to... They went to Cronulla Methodist, and he used to go look at houses for the young people that were looking for houses, and he usually knocked back for drainage or...
Yeah, he knew what he was doing in terms of
He knew,
buildings.
you know, if something, he'd go under it and over it and all that kind of thing.
Yep.
And there'd be something he'd pick at. Whereas we went out and looked at this house at Yowie Bay. It was night and there was kids asleep in the second bedroom, so we didn't really see that. But anyway, he approved the house
Yeah.
So it was on the market for 5,500, and we could only get to 5,000. And I remember Les saying to the estate agent, "Look, I'm not being smart or funny, but I'm offering 5,000, and that's it. We can't do any more."
Yep.
And they got back to us, and they had found a house in South Cronulla that they wanted.
Yeah.
And they wanted to move, and they accepted the offer.
Wow. Yeah.
So it sat there for those months until we were married.
Meant to be. Do you remember how Les asked you to marry him? Was it just a conversation or?
Oh, it was just a conversation. There was nothing, you know.
Yeah.
As Christians,
Yeah.
I think it's a bit different. You're not looking for anything romantic or glamorous or anything. It's if you both believe that this is what God intends for you,
Yeah.
which we did do,
Yeah.
and we come back to the psalm, the Lord will give you the desires of your heart.
Yeah.
You, his name was Les, but you call him Boggo. Did you call him Boggo when you knew him as well? Like, it's not when you knew him, when you were together, did you always call him Boggo? That's my question. I think that's quite funny.
The girls don't think I did often, but I have since it's over 12 years that he's been gone, and I'm a bit inclined to now. You know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that just how other people knew him as that name? So
My
it kinda
sister
makes
has
more
never
sense.
called him anything except Bogsy.
Bogsy.
Okay.
She always called him Bogsy to
Yeah.
this day. Just one of those things.
Yeah.
That's a good nickname.
It is a good thing.
I like it. The next question I had was, you get married, move into the house at Yeo Bay. Is that where we met? Is it the same house? So you've lived there for a very long time. Boggo, I'm guessing, comes to Caringbah Baptist with you? Is that what you...
We were married in Caringbah Baptist,
Yes.
but when we were married, after we were married, we decided we wanted the closest evangelical church.
Right.
Yeah.
Caringbah Baptist didn't need any more Sunday school teachers or anything. And so we decided that we didn't have a car because he wrote the car off, his car, which was an FJ Holden.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Who was called
Too
Susie.
many double lines.
Actually, he wrote it off on that. Coming out of Cronulla,
Yeah.
on the left-hand side, there's a football field.
Yep.
As you come up. Is that Gannon's Road?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it is.
Which road are you coming out of Cronulla?
On
the
Kingsway coming up.
Yeah. Woolaware Oval.
He was going home one night, early Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And he saw this car coming out of that road, but he had the right of way,
Yes.
Yeah.
which you could never take for granted
Yes. Okay.
because the fella kept coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that very day, he'd helped his father put seatbelts in father's car,
Yeah.
but he didn't have any in
Oh.
his at that stage. It wasn't
Yeah.
a requirement.
Yeah.
Anyway, he ended up on the other side of the highway in someone's drive,
Yeah.
and the car had bounced off a telegraph pole and he was behind the telegraph pole. So in other words, if that telegraph pole hadn't been there, he would be history at that stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But that was just before we found the house
Yeah.
where we needed the money.
Yeah. Okay.
So for 3 years we lived out at Yowie Bay without a car.
How did you get around? Just walk?
Walked, taxis. There was a guy at our church that would, drop us off, etc. But anyway, first day back after our honeymoon, he actually went to one of the other churches. I wasn't very well that day, so he went by himself. And he came home and he said, no, that's not for us.
Mm-hmm.
And
because of the teaching?
It was all to do at that stage, and you guys won't understand this, but it was all to do with dancing in churches.
Okay.
And he'd been fighting it at his church.
Yeah.
And he could have gone to 3 dances that week from that church that he went to, which we won't mention.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just came home and said why, but that's not for us. And the next week we came to Miranda Cong, which was across the road where Westfield is. And at the end of the service, they sang a Vesper, which of course we didn't know, but a hymn book came between the two of us.
Yeah.
And it was open at the right place. And of course we could sing it with the words. Yeah. So afterwards we turned around to thank the person, and it happened to be Ken Drake.
Okay.
Now, Les knew Ken because Ken went to school with one of Les's mates from Bardwell Park.
Oh, wow.
And Ken had come to Bardwell Park with this guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, it was we decided the closest evangelical church, and
that was Miranda.
And so it was Miranda Cong, and 64 years later.
Unreal. Okay, before we delve into that history, tell me more about why was dancing in churches such a big thing? You don't have to name churches or anything, but why was that a real debate between whether you should be and why was
whether
that?
Christians should dance. It's keep in mind, I know you won't understand. It was a different world.
Sure. And that's what I'm trying to understand. I want to know more.
We would have been, recognised as pretty, not adventurous. I can't think of what I want to say.
Conservative? Is that the word?
Yeah, conservative Christians that didn't dance.
Yeah.
Les couldn't dance. He had 3 left feet, not 2. Because he was to be best man for someone, and there was to be a bridal waltz, and he badly wanted to do the right thing. This was years later, and I tried so hard to teach him to dance.
Right.
And we'd end up on the floor giggling because he'd be tickling me in frustration,
Yeah.
But
so this is the thing is that some churches are allowing dancing and some is because that's how people would meet each other too, right? It was at dances.
Yeah, but that was a worldly thing.
Right. Yeah. So that's
Christians
the debate.
Christians didn't do that.
Yeah, okay.
You'll find that we've never had dancing in Miranda Cong.
That's interesting. It is a different time though, as you were saying. Okay, so we're at the point. Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. So, like, you've joined Miranda. Did you jump straight into doing things?
No,
like you
we
mentioned
decided.
Sunday school, or
I continued on doing Boys Brigade for a little while.
Yeah. Okay.
But that became a little bit difficult, not having a car, and so after a while, I stopped doing that. We decided we didn't want to get involved too quickly.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was long before we were involved in Sunday school.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And is that what you were excited to do Sunday school, or is that just Sunday school was at that point was a good entry, good entry point to starting to serve in the church?
Yeah. We were both involved.
Well, Miranda Congregational Church is a big part of your life. Obviously, you've been here since 1964. Was that right? Wow.
It would have been May probably by the time we came.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, why don't we leave that until next episode, because that's, again, there'd be so many stories from that. We'll finish up with this part 1 of the podcast, and we'll be back next week with Pam's part 2. We'll see you then.
It's just so interesting the way God led us.
Yeah.
All the way along. I didn't go to America with him in the early days, but